Isinger, and today we are continuing our author read aloud of Xavie of Shamain. We're diving into part 7, covering chapters 8 and 9. If you're new here and want to stay updated on my writing journey, consider joining my newsletter at the link in the description. Last time, Yalonde and Xavie left the three sisters, whom Xavie shamelessly ensnared. This time, let's see what the two find at their next station. This is part 7. Chapter 8. Goats on 5th epoch Boreas are highly adapted to the sparse mountainous regions. These goats are descendants of domesticated goats that escaped into the wild a couple millennia prior. Goats were not used in a domesticated form commercially or privately on Boreas in the latter part of the 4th epoch. Only redomesticated goats are observed in the 5th epoch. These, though, have undergone an accelerated evolutionary adaptation to the conditions of the remote mountainous regions. So much so that the 5th epoch goats are no longer suitable to crossbreed with imported goats. These Borean goats do not tolerate large flocks and therefore are labor intense. They are herded mainly to maintain shrubbery in hard to access areas and for their milk. Refer Borean goat cheese. Boreaspedia, 22nd edition. 28 October 05, 5th epoch. Yalonde. We followed the left path at the fork as Rosie urged us to do. After about an hour, we approach a bridge. It spans the roughly 100-meter ravine. We approach from the downhill side. On the other side, not far past the bridge, the ravine ends in a sheer cliff that raises a good 100 meters straight up. The creek that runs at the bottom of the ravine cascades down this cliff in a thunderous, picture-perfect waterfall, creating a backdrop for a bridge. I guess it would be running with more water in the snowmelt. Just a few is worth the travel to this point. Xavie eyes wide in wonder, and I cross the bridge and continue on our path, both of us now damp from the mist. The terrain gets rougher and the trees recede. First shrubbery and then more and more rocks taking their place. What trees take root here are mostly small, gnarled, wind-torn, disfigured specimens. No, not disfigured. That is the wrong thinking. I have no idea how old these trees are, but most look quite old. The size and shape they grow in is not an imperfection. It is perfect for environment. It's a harsh, unforgiving, challenging, abrasive, inhospitable environment. The regular growth does no good here. For these trees to exist, to grow, they need to adapt. There is a metaphor here. After standing here a while, thinking and philosophizing about trees, my attention snags on a faint trail I had not noticed prior. A faint trail that cuts away from the path and goes by a big boulder in a color like no other around. It screams for attention, desperately and soundlessly. I follow this trail up to the next ridge, only a few dozen meters away, and from up here I can see a yurt and some goats. We make our way to the yurt. There, a handsome Easterner male around my age with an easy smile and a playful, infectious attitude waits to greet us. With each step I approach, I get slower. I'm not certain how to deal with this. With this male and the feeling of a lightness, anticipation flooding me. This question would not exist if Xavie had not happened to my life and I encountered this fellow on my travels. I'm as certain about this as I can feel my heart fluttering in my chest. But Xavie happened, and I don't regret a single minute of it. The question then becomes, where does this leave me? And that leads to the question, why does the pilgrimage set me up with this tease? I can't delay arriving right in front of him, at a distance we could touch, any longer. He stands, his smile on his face, patiently waiting for me to get through my thoughts. For a greeting, he opens his arms, pulls me close, and gives me a swift peck, left cheek, right cheek, left cheek. I did not see that coming. The contact is warm, welcome, putting me at ease. And he smells of dry grasses, like the summer dry grasses in Shamain, like home, like the most relaxing and comforting scent of home. I look him in the eyes, dark brown, honest eyes. The name is Alkonost, but you can call me Kuno. He introduces himself with a soft but warm, firm voice, then looks awkward. I'm not sure how to break this news. It's kind of awkward to lead with this. I'm so sorry. He fumbles for words, wringing his hands, flushing. It's cute, and I feel for him. Time to put him out of his misery. Kuno, you have not said what the issue is. What is wrong? Nothing wrong, it's just, well, come on in. He holds the yurt door open and lets me enter first. I see. I turn to him entering and raise an eyebrow. I mean, we can try to create some separation. I might have some blankets we can use. Yeah, no separate rooms in here. I'm so sorry. My apologies. Now he's got a nice reddish tinge to his cheeks and neck. I see. I have a hard time not to burst out laughing. How about you explain what the station is about, and we get back to that separation in a bit. We step outside again, and Kuno visibly relaxes into his easygoing self I first noted when laying eyes on him. We discuss how the typical day looks here. It feels natural, relaxed, familiar, even more so than all the previous hosts. There are a couple dozen goats here. They mostly look after themselves during the day. Shortly before sunset, the goats return to their enclosure for the night. This is also one of the times they get milked. In the morning, the goats get milked and then let out. They graze in the vicinity, being highly capable climbers. They prefer the shrubs and more wooded vegetation to grass. After the morning milking, this milk and the milk from the previous evening is processed to make cheese. There is not enough milk to make large pieces of cheese or even meals. No, he says, he discovered that specializing in small single meal portions and diversified seasoning is much more appreciated in his goat cheese. The rest of the day, he says, he spends practicing Aurora Densu or with the staff or karambits. He also likes to play the flute, but does not know if he is any good, as his goats are not exactly an impartial audience. When wood from the gnarly trees is available, he carves. He stresses, though, that he does not cut down trees or any living branches, only the wood that comes available because of natural processes he uses. After a quick lunch, I accept his invitation to practice some Aurora Densu. He impresses me with his form and control. I welcome the exercise, as I had no opportunity to practice for far too long. Or I did not make the opportunity. I must say The different activities and hard work in the past stations have trained my body in ways I did not realize. Only now, when reverting to an activity and movements long instilled and practiced, do I feel the change. It is a good change, I think. It is not long before my muscle memory takes over and guides me through the forms. I thoroughly enjoy this, and it does not take us long to break into a sweat. He undoes his top and reveals a surprisingly toned body. It is very easy around him, around Kono. Something about him relaxes me, makes all the tension I wasn't even aware of simply evaporate. The longer we practice, the quieter, the more rested, the more centered, the less burdened I become. We keep at it until the goats return for the night. Then we milk them and head over to a small waterfall that he says he uses as a shower. He is not at all hesitant to undress completely, and he steps under the fall to wash off the sweat from exercising earlier. It just feels right, nothing wrong or awkward or inappropriate about it. So I join him without hesitation, without reservation, without a scrap of clothing on me. Astonishing most of all, myself. After dinner, when it is time for Xavie to go to bed, Kono sings him his lullaby. Schlaf, Kindlein, schlaf, der Vater hüt dich scharf, die Mutter schüttelt's Bäumelein, da fällt herab ein Träumelein. Schlaf, Kindlein, schlaf. Schlaf, Kindlein, schlaf. Ziegen zur Weide gebracht, aus Milch Käs gemacht, an sich selber gedacht. Schlaf, Kindlein, schlaf. The days go by with milking the goats in the morning, caring for their health, their horns, hooves, coat, and checking for injuries, as festering scratches can be fatal. These goats are, while similarly sized and with a lot of other similarities to sheep, something entirely different. Far more self-sufficient, far more capable of taking care of themselves. It's far more involved herding them. We make cheese, exercise Aurora Dansu with the staff or the karambits. We enjoy each other's company. As Kono explains, the pilgrimage is designed in a way that the language, cultural norms, and expected behaviors adjust to the pilgrim. So in this case, me. This is to prevent a cultural conflict that would only detract from the learnings and progression in the pilgrimage. I guess this means it was time for me to rediscover and renew my evaluation of Aurora Dansu, the staff, karambits, and intimacy. Xavie observes our Aurora Dansu exercises and tries from time to time to imitate the movements. Of course, he does not yet have the control or balance to do so, but it is a start. The far more surprising and promising fact is that he observes and imitates from observation, as I suspected for so long. He takes his time observing, a lot of time, and once he tries to imitate, his first attempts are astonishingly close. Come December 16th, we celebrate Xavie's 3rd birthday. Eating the cake is an appropriately messy affair, and I consider this a win. Kono starts teaching Xavie how to play 9-man's Morris. Kono is infinitely patient, varying his game to keep Xavie engaged, interested, and getting much better at his game. It being the winter season, we have our share of snow and refreshing temperatures. The days are short, the nights are long. We sit at a fire of mostly goat dung and peat bricks, and we talk. Kono fiddles with pieces of wood, carving figurines, cups, bowls, and pieces for some board game. The slivers he peels off are added to the fire for fuel. Occasionally he takes out his flute, and his play is always much better than he gives himself credit for. At least I think so. There is plenty of time and opportunity for unhurried exploration between the two of us. It is easy, uncomplicated, comfortable, welcome, enjoyable. Time goes by. Xavie particularly enjoys the snow. He spends hours building snowmen of varying sizes and all kinds of other figures. His pride, though, is building his own snow castle. For me, while I enjoy the rediscovery of physical activity and sensation, discovering the meditative and calming effects are what caught me by surprise. The calming influence physical activity has on my thoughts, how it relaxes me, centers me, is like nothing I have experienced so far. That it is the same Aurora Dansu and the same basic form with the staff is just beyond words. I was not aware of this before, it having been routine. Xavie follows our Aurora Dansu sessions, watching, cataloging, learning. When he tries himself, the forms are astonishingly good from the start. Not perfect, of course, but a solid foundation. The longer he practices on his own with a bit distance from us, the better his coordination and balance get. It fills me with contentment and pride, seeing him develop every day. The calming and centering effect these exercises have on me does not only influence my mood, but also the intensity of the physical exertion. Gone is the mental fight to push to the end of a session. No, it is just a flow, effortless and without barriers to overcome on the motivational side, pushing far beyond what I considered my physical capabilities. I'm entirely at ease with it the whole time. This all accumulates in a reclamation of myself to a degree I couldn't even imagine being possible. It puts me at ease with myself, centers me, grounds me in a fundamental way. It also allows me to be much more uninhibited. Everything all day long, including with Kona. And this time also demonstrates that allowing oneself to let go and feel, to indulge in the sensation of enjoying the moment, the sensations, the lust, the satisfaction should not be a luxury but a given. Something everyone is entitled to. After all, how can I be my best self for someone else, for Xavie, for my tribe, if I'm not the best I can be for myself? While the time here has taught me about goats and cheese and herbs, it far more profoundly helped me rediscover and learn about myself. One morning, while milking the goats, I just know it is time for us to leave. While I would like to enjoy my time here some more, I have more of an urge to move on. I let Kono know and we change the plans for the day. We'll do a sweep of the area to see what my options are, where the pedestrians are. There are only two. One continues the path we came from the last station, the sheep. The other continues on the path we took once we turned off from the main path. This time I need to take some time to choose. It's not instant. Neither choosing nor eliminating works. In the afternoon, we have an intense exercise session that pushes us both relentlessly and thoroughly explores my limits, physical, mental, and endurance. In this state, when my mind goes in between reality and being distant, I know which path to choose. I let Kono know, and he promises to do his best to make the rest of the day and night with him memorable. In the evening we have a celebratory meal with a variety of goat cheeses prepared in a variety of ways. It is decadently enjoyable. And then we take the celebration to a far more personal level, repeatedly, intensely. Kono makes good on his promise, and I'm glad he does. I enjoy it fully. The next morning, Kono presents us with a small but exquisite selection of goat cheeses to take along for our pilgrimage. And for Xavie, he has a set of game stones and a game board he can roll up. His first very own game, and it's a 9-man's Morris. Kono accompanies us to the main path. Once we stand at the pedestal, I activate the emblem. After a goodbye that feels a tad heavier than the previous ones, we are on our way. Chapter 9. Stone masonry skill levels in the late 4th epoch on Boreas are exceptional, especially among the dwarven and stout tribes. While the works, from standard tiles to ornamental wall coverings, are of outstanding craftsmanship, the sculptures in their technique, detail, and expression are of exceptional mastery. These might be a resounding commercial success would it not be nigh impossible to export them to the galaxy. As the commercial aspect is of no value on Boreas, these suggestions lack a reason or motivation to make it a possibility. Still, the pride and workmanship are valued and revered, and it is a matter of honor to teach and learn the craft. While these works are second to none for this time in the near regions of the galaxy, they can't compare to works found in the location of Old Minath. There, works exist that appear to have inlays of such filigree nature they appear to be single strands of the finest silk in highly complex patterns. They appear to be not only two-dimensional but three. No knowledge or even idea how this could be achieved exists these days. It is a lost craft and art. Boreaspedia, 23rd edition. 6th March 06, 5th epoch. Yalonde. The path climbs higher into the mountains, and the area becomes more inhospitable. More and more rocky areas take over the grassy patches. The walls rise deeper and higher, the valley becomes narrower, and the path relentlessly climbs and gains altitude. Snow no longer only lingers in the shadows, but covers more and more of the area. This makes me wonder how the climate has been relatively mild compared to what I would expect in a region like this. I can only assume it has to do with the pilgrimage and the different rules that apply. Around lunchtime, we find our next station. It is literally a gaping doorway in the cliff face. A lone stone column stands in the middle of what looks like an enormous oversized doorframe without a door. The doorway carved into the cliffside is easily 8 meters wide and 15 meters high, smooth and in absurd contrast to the natural jagged and irregular rock formations shaped by ice, rain, wind, erosion, and time. What makes it look unreal, though, is that it's an actual doorway with a smooth bottom into a huge open pit. That is free of snow for some reason. We step from the path in the open valley, through the doorway in the cliff face, and into the open of the pit. The temperature instantly is pleasant, fresh but not frigid. Only then do I truly realize how cold it has gotten out on the path. It is just surreal. To call the pit enormous is an understatement. Not only does it stretch far and wide, but also deep. How deep, I can't see from where I'm standing at the portal. There is a house, built out of stone, naturally, close to the edge, where the ground opens up a bit to the right. I walk straight ahead, curious about the area where there is no ground in sight. Looking down, I can see several layers of terraces descending. Most striking, though, is the display of different kinds of stone, layer upon layer. Some are near vertical, others bent in huge radius, others still are jagged like a giant fist punched them, disturbed them, offset them. Some, especially high above the level I'm standing on, run parallel to the face of the mountains, as if some giant force tipped the whole area up to build these mountains, including all the stone and everything under our feet. There are so many different colorations of stone here. It looks like an artist's mixing palette. Nothing seems impossible to fashion if it can be done in stone. "Ain't those layers a thing of beauty?" a deep, raspy voice asks from behind and makes me jump. "Hey, no jumping down me pit." "Then don't scare me," I retort, perhaps a bit too harsh. "Ain't here to scare ya. Ain't sneaking up on ya either. Just welcoming ya to my pit." She's a dwarf, with that burly, short but muscular build, clearly capable of doing hard work and not being coy about it either. "Sorry, you made me jump. I did not hear you coming up on us. I was mesmerized by what nature created over a long time that's put on display here." I explain and wave out over the pit and the round. She looks out over the pit, and her thoughts seemingly going on a brief stroll down memory lane. A bit absent-mindedly, her voice a bit more hollow-sounding, she says, It is. Sometimes I forget, but then the sun shines on a particular place, and I pause and watch and remember. Dora Suri is the name. Suri for short. I know who you are." I truly look at her now. I could not begin to guess at her age. She's not young, but also not old by my standards. I have not encountered enough dwarfen to know more. She's got dark, glinting eyes, shining with mischief and melancholy at the same time. "I don't want to offend, but you look like what in my time would be someone from the dwarfen tribes. I wasn't aware that the first settlers had different races." She shakes her head. They didn't. It's part of the setup of the pilgrimage. It adjusts to the society on the lands. So here you got me. Well, I guess it's very fitting. Dwarfen are very adept at working with stone generally, I muse. Only now do I recall that all our hosts were from different Borean humanoid races so far. What does that say about my state? I've been so focused on Xavie and his development that I'm going through the world blindly, staying with hosts without fully recognizing and appreciating them. We are introduced to the pit. One of the first things I learn is that the terraces are called benches or berms. They in fact form a continuous spiral from the edge down to the bottom. Suri lives in the house right on the edge of the pit. The bedroom windows look out over it, catching the best view there is. The lullaby Suri sings for Xavie from the first day talks about stone like a living thing. Schlaf, Kindlein, schlaf. Der Vater hüt die Schaf. Die Mutter schüttelt's Bäumelein, da fällt herab ein Träumelein. Schlaf, Kindlein, schlaf. Schlaf, Kindlein, schlaf. Schauend fühlen, Bild kriegen, mit Geschick den Stein verbiegen, geduldig den Felsengeist besiegen. Schlaf, Kindlein, schlaf. Over the next few weeks, I learn how to quarry stone, breaking it down in different ways, and how to create tiles, blocks, but most of all, useful items for everyday life. For this, we use the remnants of mishaps from creating larger items. The most fascinating activity is what Suri calls her hobby. She loves to carve statues, and darn is she good at it. The first time I entered her hobby shack, I nearly got scared out of my clothes. Imagine entering a not very well lit shed and staring into the wide open maw of a dragon. Curled tongue, long sharp teeth, flared nostrils, lips pulled back in a menacing snarl, and all. She'd carved a gargoyle in the shape of a dragon out of a huge block. The detail is mesmerizing. The play of the light on its features brings it to life. It's astonishing. Seeing this, I definitely get the expression in the lullaby about bending stones. Each day, the sun's path bathes the pit in stone patterns on display in an ever-changing light. Just watching this is fulfilling. But learning how to craft useful things out of stone is also not bad. Xavie mimics the slow steadiness and applies this to what he is doing. Suri found nicely polished pieces of stone in different shapes, colors, and sizes. Xavie sits and studies them. Then, after some time, looking like he is formulating a plan, he moves them into another order, or stacks them, or puzzles them together to build larger shapes. It is amazing how many different ways of combining or sorting an assortment of stones can be found or invented. Truly. A lesson learned is that things can't be or should not be rushed. Any rushing leads to stresses and errors, and these lead to pieces being rendered useless or destroyed. The attempt to rush to shorten the time ends up extending the time, as all progress is lost and the work needs to be started anew. Because the work at times is slow, okay, it is generally slow compared to other materials, it is also tempting to let the thoughts wander. One of the observations I make is that while the work seems slow, the constant and persistent chipping away over time yields its own results. It might have taken a few generations of stonemasons, but there is a huge hole of a pit in the mountainside. This did not happen instantly or overnight. No, this is the result of persistence over years, decades, lifetimes. It comes as no surprise that, while I'm carving the raw shape of a serving platter out of a particularly intricately veined piece, and letting my thoughts wander, comparing the pattern to paths and roads on the map, I know it is time for Xavie and me to move on. I let Suri know once she comes back from hauling a large block of near black marble up from the near bottom of the pit. As it's summer solstice and a sunny, balmy day at that, we decide to go for an afternoon stroll to look for pedestals, and to marvel once more at the play of the light on the layers of stone, drawing shapes and forms grotesque and fair, with the shade cast by the rough edges. We find 3 pedestals. One is in the far back, at the foot of a path that zigzags its way up the cliff to a plateau. From there, a path leads to the south. 2 pedestals stand in the doorway out of the main path, one on either side of the pillar bisecting the opening. That one, Suri points to the one on the western side, leads to a path north, climbing like a goat up the hill. No fun, that one, but a great view from where it ends. She turns to the other path. That there goes the path you came on. Some stairs to climb. There's a cave and a view to die for. Sounds like all these paths are getting a bit more challenging than what we have seen so far. I don't know about the one with the cave. Gives me an uneasy feeling, but at the same time is tempting. The zigzagging one just feels wrong. And how did Suri describe the last one? Climbing like a goat and with a great view. I guess we are high enough now that the views are bound to become spectacular with the land laid out below, far and wide. As we walk back and stand at the edge of the pit, watching the sun play with shadows on the eastern side, I have the urge to look back to the entrance. And there it is. The pedestal on the eastern side is illuminated by a shaft of sunlight, while the other is in shadow. Looking over to the far end, where the zigzag one is, I see that sure enough, that pedestal is also shaded. I guess that answers that. We are going to the cave. I let Suri know we'll be leaving the next morning. After dinner, she presents us with a mortar and pestle set fashioned out of particularly intricately marmorized pieces of stone. The play of the swirls and shapes on the curved surfaces make it look like it's wavy, wafting, alive. Of course it is not. It's all an optical illusion. Mesmerizing to look at though. For Xavie, she has a bag of marbles made out of stone. Each individual one has intricate veins, all polished to a mirror surface, reflecting the world back, bent out of shape. The next morning we say our goodbyes to Suri. Despite our rough start, I got to really liking her rough and no-nonsense personality. There was never any doubt about her opinion or position, and I can appreciate a hard worker and creative, free mind. She is all of that. Under normal circumstances, I'd keep in contact with her as a dear friend. Alas, these are not normal circumstances, so it is goodbye for good. Suri brings us to her portal. Now looking back, this portal is so fitting. It is a doorway to a different world, transporting you someplace else, a place with its very own and peculiar kind of beauty, a place with its own magic, a place with its own stories. I activate the emblem on the pedestal, and Xavie and I turn and continue on our path. And that brings us to the end of today's reading. What do you think? How many more stations will there be for Yalonde and Xavie? Let me know in the comments below. If you want to explore more of this world, don't forget to subscribe to my newsletter at the link in the description. It's where I share all my secret projects and early updates first. Next time, in part 8, we'll see how much more there is to the pilgrimage. Hopefully. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss it, or click the playlist right here to catch up on episodes you've missed.